I was super intrigued by Shilajit. I've never heard of it. It had a little description and I was like, what is this black goo from the mountains that's been used for thousands of years?
In India, there's so much lore behind Shilajit, actually. They call it, one of the names they call it is like Soma Rus. Soma is kind of like the nectar of the divine.
I feel like the whole of life can be understood better and experienced by just working with plants. Like you understand yourself more, you understand the miracle and majesty of this planet.
I've heard like, I want to say legends of like Alexander the Great when he got to India, finding it and taking it for his armies, and also Attila the Hun, who like gave it to his armies for strength. You know, our goal is to just be the premium Shilajit company in the US and then spread, you know, throughout the world.
Cool. Well, Nico, thanks so much for coming and joining us today.
Yeah, appreciate you having me. Thank you.
Nico has a company called Black Lotus Shilajit, which is awesome. Ashton, for my birthday last year, gave me your honey Shilajit mix, which was, I love it.
Heck yeah.
It's really great. So we, just wanted to kind of sit and chat and get to know you a little bit, hear about how you came to be sourcing Shilajit. And I know you've been working with it for a long time.
Yeah.
Before it was all over Instagram and the way that it is now. So
yeah,
I was kind of fascinated to hear how you found Shilajit and just kind of a little bit more about your story and just see where our conversation goes.
Yeah, so my health journey started when I was 18 or so. I was very depressed and overweight and drank a lot, partied a lot, and was very confused and anxious and just didn't have a direction in life, I would say. I went to school for engineering and just didn't like it. And my business partner, Christian, who I started the Black Lotus Shilajit with, we've been friends since high school, and he kind of got me into the organic, like Weston A. Price diet, ancestral eating, and I lost over 150 pounds, and I was, I went to the health food store so much that I got a job there, and that's where I kind of learned about supplements and herbs and alternative medicine, which I then studied in university online for a bit, and herbalism, and I got certified in a bunch of different supplements by the companies that we would sell at the store. And that's where I tried Shilajit for the first time about 10 years ago. When I was working there, we brought in a line of superfoods, and Shilajit powder was one of the things they offered. And after the training and bringing it in, we got to each choose a sample for ourselves. So I was super intrigued by Shilajit. I've never heard of it. It had a little description, and I was like, what is this black goo from the mountains that's been used for thousands of years? And I had never heard of it, and it just like fascinated me how it just naturally forms. And so I tried it and really didn't think much of it. I thought it was cool. It tasted really bad. It smelled terrible. The powder was hard to work with. I breathed it in. But I did feel a little bit, but nothing compared to the resin, which I tried a few years later. And yeah, my ex-wife, about 7-8 years ago, she was really ill. She had a chronic illness that she had since she was 8 years old, and she had her entire large intestine removed when she was 12. So she kind of dealt with it for a long time, had difficulty with, absorbing nutrients, staying hydrated, electrolyte balancing and all that. And from anxiety, it was like ulcerative colitis and Crohn's and different intestinal issues. And she could barely drink a cup or hold a cup of water to drink. And for months, we tried all different things from our herbalists, like Ayurvedic tonics, rasayanas, teas, herb supplements. She had to go to the ER a few times because it was so bad she needed fluids in the IV. And my friend Christian, he was like, I just actually got some Shilajit resin. I've been really feeling the benefits, and his parents were taking it and really feeling it as well. And he was like, you should try it. But I was looking, and it was very expensive to get a little bit. And yeah, we didn't have the most money. So I was like, I'll try to buy it in bulk. And I was already at the time selling different herbal tonics and tinctures and things that I would grow and make and sell at different events in Florida. And so I was like, if it works, then I'll just include it in my line of stuff and start selling it. So I bought 2.5 kilos the first try I found it.
Did you feel like you were doing something illicit?
Definitely, yeah. I was like, I'm buying kilos from Russia of this black goo, and it seemed really cool. The person, they had been gathering it for generations there. It was lab tested, and I felt good about it. So she tried it, and I gave her a good amount, like 1 to 2 grams a day for a week, and she was completely fine. Like, it was like she had never been sick. Like, she was up and about, had energy, felt good, was holding in, her electrolytes, and it really was a silver bullet for her, just in her condition of like really needing to heal the gut lining and absorb those nutrients with the fulvic acid and the shilajit. And so I sold those 2.5 kilos really fast in our events. And then I asked my friend Christian if he wanted to make it its own company and try to get it into the health food stores locally and try to make a website and see what we could do. And so we did that almost exactly 6 years ago in July. And yeah, we've sold hundreds and hundreds of thousands of product, thousands of kilos, and we're now in 600 health food stores throughout the country. And yeah, it's been amazing and super rewarding to see the testimonials of people that, for some people it really changes their life, and for some people it's like subtle, but it's amazing. Yeah.
So 1 to 2 grams, that's kind of like how big is that? Like,
So 250 milligrams is what we usually recommend, and that's the size of like a lentil.
Okay.
A gram is the size of like a garbanzo bean or something like that.
Yeah. Got it.
And have you changed your source? Because I know people have sourcing it in Russia and Nepal and India, kind of all over the place. Have you stayed with that same first source that you got it? Or
Actually have.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've tried to find it from other people. We've gotten samples from Mongolia and India and Nepal and Afghanistan and Pakistan and China, and nothing has really compared to the consistency and like the color and the effects of that original one we got. And now we do our own third-party lab testing to confirm their lab testing, and our company is very transparent with the batch number on each product, that then you can see the lab test on the website. And a lot of other companies, they'll just have one lab test from like years ago. And yeah, we just like to be that extra transparent with everything and make sure that hasn't been tainted or polluted. But yeah, we've been super blessed to have the source, and it's never been an issue, and it's always been super high quality.
I know there's a lot of fake shilajit or counterfeit shilajit. Yeah.
Burning tires, and they put it
Yeah.
they do all kinds of crazy stuff. It's like tari, and they put it in jars and stuff like that.
Yeah, and they also do like fulvic acid extracts
Yeah.
and just mix it with random things or concentrates. And, the processing is very important, how they, cleanse it with water and then sieve out all the sediment and then evaporate it in the sun. And you're supposed to do that 6 times for it to be super, high quality and pure. Some people skip those steps and boil it, or who knows what. Traditionally, it was processed with cow urine, which kind of interesting.
We were working on that project.
Yeah.
We actually we were going to shoot a little video on how to process shilajit. We got the cow urine.
We were out there at a friend's house with this cow waiting. Mitesh had a bucket waiting behind the cow.
Running after the cow.
Somewhere we have slow motion footage of Mitesh with the bucket.
Like darting from the cow urine. And Jeremy's friends are like, who did you bring here? Like, why is he running around? But Dr. Ladd, like our Ayurvedic teacher, we were like, hey, let's just do this traditionally. I know like traditionally we call it, the processing, like wash it with milk or like trufala water. You can do it like that. But Dr. was like, no, we need cow urine. We're like, all right, well, let's get some cow urine, So
That's awesome.
so there's a lot of processing.
I think that cow urine is still in our fridge
We need to get rid of
downstairs.
it.
It's been like over a year.
Like a year old.
It's concentrated now.
And,
They'll say a
there's
lot of
probably
good things
some
about us.
Some kind of Vastu situation with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's hilarious.
So, what's your vision? Where you're going? Like,
Yeah, our goal is to just be the premium Shilajit company in the U.S. and then spread, throughout the world. We now have like 15 different products. We have, the Shilajit resin tablets, which is just the resin compressed. We have the honey. We have the glycerin tincture. We're working on an alcohol tincture. And we're going to be working on different blends in the tinctures of herbs, and then mixing that with the Shilajit, kind of to do like a men's blend, a women's blend, a hormone energy balance. And then we're coming out with capsules and powder. Our source found a way to powder the Shilajit without losing its essence, without breaking it down too much. It's just essentially, well, I'm not gonna ruin it, but it retains its potency and quality and energetics. Some powders are just boiled or freeze dried, which kind of breaks down the molecular structure of the fulvic acid. And we found that taking powder compared to the resin just doesn't have the same effects from the ones we've tried. So ours, you can literally mix back into resin in your hand if you just, with a little bit of water. We're hoping to expand our line and really, just keep at it and keep the purity and the transparency.
So I've taken it in a few different forms. I've taken it in capsules. I've taken your honey, and then somebody else gave me a jar of the resin. And I feel like the experience and kind of ritual around taking it is such a part of. It changed when I started taking it as a resin. It really changed my relationship with it. It's much more intimate. I feel like the smell, the taste, it all really adds a lot to the way that your body can absorb it.
Definitely. It's an experience, and the resin actually has aromatherapeutic benefits as well. So just like essential oil, there's a researcher who wrote a couple books on Shilajit. He was a professor and for pharmacy and chemistry in India, and he's the one that kind of demystified Shilajit, what it's made of, how it forms, and how to purify it effectively, and did a bunch of research on the clinical studies and kind of put it all together. And he found, I'm sorry, I lost my train.
I think the fly took your thought.
Yeah, he did. Wait, what were we just saying? Sorry.
The experience of taking Shilajit.
Right. He studied the aromatherapeutic benefits of Shilajit by putting it in this machine and finding the vapors that come off of it, just like they do with essential oil, which is really interesting and fascinating to me, how it can be an experience. But people ask me what's the best way to take Shilajit, and it's so bioavailable and so beneficial in any form that the best way is just the way you're going to take it the most, honestly. So for me, when I travel, it's the tablets. When I'm home, I like to mix the honey with my tea or coffee, and but the resin is just special because that's just how it naturally is.
It's been fun for us, and seeing, we've both been involved in Ayurveda for many years at this point. You probably more than me, but it's been, 10, 15 years, somewhere. Anyway, long before it became trendy, the Shilajit thing. And it's interesting seeing how Shilajit has kind of become part of the health movement, biohacking world, but without really connecting it to Ayurveda, which is interesting. It's kind of taken on a life of its own outside of the tradition. And I guess I know there's traditions in Russia of it. I had a friend, we were supposed to actually go on this trek to Nepal this past year in search of Shilajit to verify a source. Basically, we work with Banyan Botanicals, if you're familiar with Banyan Botanicals. So we had this whole trek where they had a source of Shilajit that we were going to go to Nepal. We were going to fly in and then take like a 2-day trek to this mountaintop to see this source of Shilajit. And then, am I allowed to say the next part? I think so, right?
Yeah.
Banyan had a truck of, like a giant truck of herbs that had just been packaged and brought over to the US that was stolen.
Oh no.
Like major dollar situation stolen. The truck was some kind of heist. The truck
no
was just
way.
like vanished with, what was it? It was like neem
herbs.
tablets or
It was
something.
like neem tablets. Like what are you gonna do by taking neem tablets?
That's a weird heist for sure.
I think they were probably surprised. Nobody's like there was a private investigator, there was federal investigators. The truck just vanished. But I can only imagine that they thought there was a different kind of herb in there than neem
yeah,
tablets.
you would think so.
But it sort of derailed our Shilajit adventure that I think we're going to do it next year.
Well, Shilajit from, I'm not saying, they didn't take Shilajit, okay? They took neem, so right?
No, but where I was going was my Russian friend was translating something for us. And in the process, he started talking about how his parents in Russia used to give him like this black goo as a kid.
Yeah.
Whenever him or his brother was sick, they would give him this black goo, and he never knew what it was. He always thought it was gross. And when we were talking to him about Shilajit, it kind of went off the light bulb of what his parents used to give him when he was growing up in Russia.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's like it's a folk remedy there, and yeah, actually at the Dave Asprey biohacking conference, we set up a table there vending, and this lady came up and she was like, "Oh, Shilajit, what is that?" And I explained it, and she's like, "Is it also called mumio?" Because her dad was a professional Olympic boxer in Russia before she was born, and he was always looking for it in the U.S. but could never find it. And she said that he would put it on his wrists and his hands when they would break, because they would always break from boxing, and he would take a bunch. And he said, normally it would take 6 to 8 weeks to heal his hand. It would take 2 to 3 weeks to like fully mend his bones and stuff. So it was like super interesting. And I gave her some to take a video of her saying all that, and it was really cool. But yeah, there it's called mumio, which means mummifier. Because it helps like rejuvenate you, and it's kind of like anti-aging.
Mummifier?
Mummifier.
Like mummy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, in India, there's so much lore behind Shilajit, actually. They call it, one of the names they call it is like Somaras, and Somaras has this whole story behind it, but it's kind of like really sacred, and it's got an esoteric vibe to it, because I just think what it takes to create the Shilajit, so you have plants in a mountain and they all degrade, or like mosses or whatever, and then the pressures of the mountains moving, I guess, is creating this like Shilajit. So it's like there's so many years that are dedicated to the production of the Shilajit. But Soma Rus, like Soma is kind of like the nectar of the divine. Rus means kind of like the juice or that.
Yeah.
So it has a lot of esoteric, spiritual components of it as well. So
yeah. One of them I've heard is the angels and the demons that were having the tug of war with the snake wrapped around the mountain, churning the waters. And they say it was like the sweat of the angels that came into the earth, and, while it was forming, which metaphorically kind of makes sense, because it's like the tectonic plates and all that, the earth power just like over millions of years. And yeah, it's fascinating. I actually have I want to say all the books, but there might be some I don't know of that have ever mentioned Shilajit throughout history. So it's in like the Unani Tib, which is from, I think, 800 AD, and then the Charaka Samhita, the Sushruta Samhita, which all talk about, they're like the first Ayurvedic texts on medicine and surgery, and they both mention Shilajit, which is fascinating, and how there's, nothing it can't help with if you combine it with the right tonics or herbs.
Yeah. I've had, there are different lineages of Ayurveda, like how they practice. And so like the lineage I'm in, we prescribe Shilajit to people of all ages. But I've heard another Vedya talk about it and say that for for men, if you take Shilajit post 40, like if you wait till 40, and then you take it, it actually has, because it kind of has like, over decades, it has diminishing returns on what it does like to your body. But they're saying that, if you want to live to 100, you start taking it at age 40.
I timed that
Interesting.
perfectly.
Yeah, there you go.
I might take a break.
No, it's kind of interesting. It's kind of cool. They're saying that actually, it kicks in at a certain age and it gets you to that century mark.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
There's a mythology about Hanuman taking it too, right?
Yeah.
The langurs, the gray monkey. Have you've been to India?
I haven't,
Oh,
but
okay.
I am familiar with Hanuman. Yeah.
The langurs,
Yeah.
the kind of monkey. And when you're in India, the difference between the langurs and the like red monkeys is pretty fascinating. The langurs are much more regal and I don't know, there's like a majesty to them, whereas the red ones are just sort of like, I don't know, what you'd expect of a monkey. They're a little bit mischievous and gotta like come up and take your bag of food. But the langurs are much more regal, and there's apparently the langurs will climb up in the mountains and eat Shilajit.
Yeah, that's how, they say that was how it was discovered by the Himalayan villagers and incorporated into Ayurveda, that they saw the monkeys and goats on the tops of the Himalayas, like eating it in the summertime, and they attributed their health and vitality and strength to the Shilajit. So that's how they started. I might as well try it. But that's how a lot of herbal things were found by watching
animals,
bears and jaguars and what herbs and things they would eat. 'Cause I know bears like eat clay, like bentonite clay and different things, and that's how it was discovered by the indigenous.
Will you explain to people that don't know that much about Shilajit how it's formed over time?
Yeah, so billions or hundreds of millions of years ago, when there wasn't much earth above the sea, those like ammonites crystal creatures, they were all over the ocean and by the billions, and so the sea floor became most of their shells, and those nutrients and minerals from the sea, which was extremely rich back then, more than now, rose up, and then through the tectonic plates colliding, they rose up, and then jungles and organic matter and mycelium grew everywhere, and then as they got crushed underneath the tectonic plates, all that organic matter, minerals and fossils went through all these different geothermal and biochemical processes, being eaten by different bacteria and yeast and mold. And then it forms this final thing called Shilajit, or this resin. And Shilajit actually never goes bad. It's like, it can't decay because it's already been through everything that it could go through. Yeah, it's already done all that. So then the pressure of the mountains forces it up through the cracks, and during the summer months, at the tops of the mountains, it's frozen the rest of the year, but in the summer, the sun causes it to expand, and it cracks the rocks open and starts sweating or oozing out, and that's why, Shilajit means like stone breaker, because it's breaking the stones and oozing out down the cliff sides. And that one researcher, his name's David Gosal, that wrote the couple of books on Shilajit. He found that the minerals and the fulvic acid and the carbon-60 actually come from those marine fossils that were in the ocean millions of years ago, and that's why you can find shells and fossils of fish at the tops of the Himalayas or the Altai Mountains, where we get ours from.
Yeah. Can you just, for people that might not know, can you just give us the list of benefits, or what is Shilajit good for? Yeah,
so it is extremely good for vitality and energy. Hormone balancing is a big one, the ATP of the cells. It can really help with the blood sugar, with digestion, skin, hair, and nails, mineralization. For men, it really helps with testosterone, just balancing out those hormones, and for joints, for addiction, for weight loss, for immunity. it really just nourishes all of the organ systems and helps you get the most out of your food or other herbs or supplements you take with it. I think it's called a
Yogavahi.
Yogavahi, yeah. Which they used to put it in, all the tonics. Just a little bit of Shilajit helps it absorb and assimilate and go to where it needs in the body. And in the past, before it really went, trendy, it was in the West marketed for men for libido and like a men's sexual enhancement product. But it's so much more than that. That's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. And yeah, there's really nothing it can't help with just because it has all those minerals. And the fulvic acid, like all of our different organs and cells in our body, that have evolved over millions of years, the fulvic acid has always been around in the earth. So they know it, and they can, easily bring it in as opposed to like a tablet or something that your body has to recognize and then digest and then assimilate and then take to wherever it needs to in the body. Shilajit can actually have the same benefits if you just rub it on your skin as if you eat it, because it's so bioavailable. It totally bypasses the digestion.
Interesting. And I imagine, and I've heard that there are just different overharvesting and sustainability concerns.
In some areas, definitely. Like it's hard to get and it's hard to mine because of where it forms. That's why the benefit of it being from higher elevations is that it can't really be mined. You can't really have like a mining situation at the top of the Himalayas. It has to be like harvested in smaller batches, but it is abundant, to say the least. It's super abundant. It forms in all the mountain ranges throughout the world. Like there's a really cool US Shilajit company that gets it from Utah. But we found the Siberian Shilajit, the Altai Shilajit, is super powerful, and the Altai Mountains are almost 1 billion years old compared to the Himalayas, which are like 50 million years old. So I think there's just something to that power, and I'm positive there's really good sources in the Himalayas as well. It's just depends on, there's bigger civilizations there and more polluted rain, so you got to make sure it's not coming from somewhere where it's like pooled water. And then another issue that was, that happened with Shilajit was that it was being stored in aluminum barrels, and that's why it was testing super high for heavy metals. But, naturally, it's a super powerful chelator, and that's why, everything in the earth has some sort of heavy metals, even like a cucumber or an apple that has some, heavy metals. But the Shilajit is such a powerful electric charge and ionic charge and chelator that it doesn't let it out in your body. It just gathers more and then effectively like gets it out. And we've, our source has been gathering it sustainably. Traditionally, they don't sell, the most, but it's not like tapping for oil and stuff like that.
Yeah, we grew up in the 80s, so like, vaccination, you can even go to school if you're not like vaccinated. And all those vaccines have like aluminum, and so I think Shilajit's really good because it actually, can chelate the aluminum out of your system. So
even out
awesome.
Out of your brain and bone marrow, it can pull it out.
Yeah.
It's super powerful.
Yeah, so strongly advise people to go through a regimen of it, for 6 months to a year. Yeah.
And have you gone up to see the harvesting process?
Not yet. I really have been wanting to. I'm planning a trip next summer to Mongolia, because I don't think we're allowed in Russia at the moment. But they're right on the border of Mongolia and Russia and Kazakhstan. We're trying to make it happen. But it is, it would take like 4 days just to get there.
Yeah.
It would be a lot of plane rides, and then little plane rides, and then more littler plane rides up into their super remote region.
And these guys live kind of at the base of the mountain that you're working with?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, in a small, I wouldn't call it a city, but a small like town in that area.
How did you connect with them again? I know you mentioned it a little bit at the beginning.
Yeah, I literally just Googled bulk Shilajit. like 6 years ago, and I think they were on Etsy at the time, but then I think Russia banned Etsy or something, so they're not on there anymore. But yeah, literally just found it on Etsy. It was kind of divine.
Will you just kind of talk a little bit about how you've seen the landscape of the market for it change? Because it feels like it just kind of burst onto the scene. I know you guys work with Troy.
Yeah,
who's part of that
a big
movement.
proponent.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when we started, there was maybe 2 or 3 other like notable Shilajit brands. Now there's 100 or something, and yeah, it's just people
In
that
6
are
years.
yeah, people that are really good at marketing kind of caught on to the trend and blew it up on TikTok, and then it blew up, on Instagram, and yeah, there's definitely some curious people getting into it just because they're good at marketing and really, not, I'm gonna say for the wrong reasons, but not for like, the integrity of it and the health. It's just kind of like, I can make money on this.
Mm-hmm.
So they find some random bulk source from China or from Pakistan or from India and don't really do their due diligence, and they're, it's being packaged overseas and you never really know what you're getting. And we've tried a bunch of different ones and been pretty disappointed with a lot of them, with like how watered down they are, or like they're a weird color. And
You run them through your testing facility?
we try
Yeah.
them and compare it to ours and see how, how it looks and how it is. But yeah, it's just hard to tell with Shilajit because it all looks the same, but it can be very drastically different, unfortunately. And yeah, it's been a challenge with, the kind of clearing up the misconceptions about it that people have marketed it as, and then they come to us and they're like, oh, I thought Shilajit was from a volcano or all this. And I'm like, no. So yeah, it's, it's good that it's getting out there. And I think when like the smoke clears, we'll definitely still be there to, hold it down and kind of, maintain the industry in a positive way. But yeah, right now, a lot of people are using it for, I don't want to say, like I said, not the wrong reasons, but not the best.
And on Amazon, you can kind of sell anything, right?
Yeah.
The regulations are.
Yeah, Amazon is the
thin.
worst for
Yeah.
sure. They have the craziest like Shilajit products on there, and they're selling it. I've seen like 100 grams of Shilajit for $4 on Amazon. Like, there's no way that's real.
Yeah.
There's literally no way. Just for the processing of it, like they're just not making money? I don't know. Or they're like, maybe they stole it. I don't know.
Back in the day, like I got Shilajit, the resin. That was probably like 10 years ago, or it was before it wasn't abundant at all, right? And I remember it was like a little old tin of it. It was like $60 for like just this little, baby tin. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's about right.
Yeah.
Like we're, I would say, on the lower end of the higher priced Shilajit. But yeah, some of them sell, especially now, like they sell like pouches of Shilajit and like little plastic pouches you tear off and
Gummies. I saw
suck out.
gummies.
Gummies are the worst because they'll sell like $70 for like 7 grams of Shilajit, and you got to eat 2 gummies. It's such a ripoff, and they're not even good gummies. And we've tried so many, and they're all so bad. They all taste so bad. We've tried to make some, but with our facility, we just opened a facility last year in Florida to make everything, and we just got GMP certified, which was a huge milestone for us, and that's where we make everything. And yeah, for me, it's cool that it's like U.S. based, and we make it here in the U.S. And a lot of people, are buying it from Alibaba, and who knows where it's being made. And so we're really proud of how far we've come from making it in our spare room at my friend's house to having this awesome facility and having a team of people who are, trained and proficient. And yeah, it's awesome how.
It's impressive. 6 years. That's a very short period of time.
It's not a long time.
So congratulations. It's awesome to see
Thank you.
that.
Appreciate it. And something else interesting I wanted to mention was that there's actually 4 different kinds of Shilajit, and that one researcher, studied all 4, and one of them is like gold, one of them is silver, one of them is like reddish, but the black one is the most iron rich, and that it's the most nutritive, and that's the one they traditionally used for, in Ayurveda for energy and vitality. But we've actually gotten some white Shilajit, which from our source, who can also get that, but it's more super concentrated. It has a ton of calcium and magnesium, and it's kind of like this white like rock that you can powder in your hands. And they use that in Russia for bones and when you break a bone essentially, and you only use it for 2 to 3 weeks, and then it's not like something you can take every day as a nutritive. But it's super interesting. And in Russia, they put it in medications in the pharmacy, and our supplier sells it to pharmacies all over Russia, just the Shilajit, and then the bulk Shilajit to put in like creams for burns and other medications that help the absorption and help mitigate the side effects, which is really interesting.
In your kind of research and studies across cultures, I know in India there's some kind of mystical elements to it for like a Kundalini awakening kind of process. Is that something you've come across from other cultures? Like in Russia, is there?
I want to, because it's like a high altitude tonic, so it helps with altitude sickness, and so they would use it a lot for going on these long treks and getting from one village to the next, and you have to go over and down a mountain. So it really helps you like stay centered and grounded. I know that the yogis used it, and they would take a bunch and meditate in the caves and kind of live off of it like a mana, and just like goji berries and Shilajit diet. But yeah, I've heard like, I want to say legends of like Alexander the Great when he got to India, finding it and taking it for his armies, and also Attila the Hun, who like gave it to his armies for strength. So not so much meditation that I've heard, other than the yogis in Tibetan.
There's a market for you then. Your UFC, tell them to just like put down some Shilajit before they go on the octagon. Yeah,
totally. We've had definitely some pro athletes. We've supplied to football team and a baseball team, and some like marathon or ultra marathon runners. It really helps them, especially to go that 100 miles. Like really helps with stamina and muscle retention, endurance, and all that.
And how'd you hook up with Troy Casey?
We had a mutual friend who was helping us with collaborations, and she reached out to his team, and he had been taking Shilajit for a long time, and he tried ours, and he vibed with the transparency and the integrity and the quality, and we've been working with him for this whole year essentially, and he loves it. I just did a podcast with him on Monday, like I said, and it was, he's so funny.
I feel like in the world of this new, I don't know what to call it, like this influencer thing that's kind of emerged in the last few years, finding somebody whose voice that you actually trust and who feels like they're rooted in years of, because you talk about like these sources of Shilajit that pop up, and it's like, who the hell are these people? They're just good at marketing. I feel like a lot of the health influencers are just kind of young people that are good at marketing themselves and don't actually have a lot of depth of knowledge and practice. But I feel like Troy's kind of cracked the code where he's funny, he's entertaining, he's like, you kind of want to watch the show.
Yeah.
And he's also got this depth of knowledge and integrity and history with him where, for me, I don't follow that many of those people, but I really enjoy his voice in that world.
Well, it seems like he just dedicated his life to like the search of that balance, and he'll pretty much do anything, You know, so he's a good voice. I think he's a good advocate. I think you aligned with the right person.
Definitely,
Yeah.
yeah. At the moment, he's our one and only collaboration. So, yeah, we've had a lot of, I would say, letdowns with some people that kind of, get followers quick, like blow up quickly, and then it doesn't translate because they don't have that authenticity and that history and that real passion for it. So yeah, we're very blessed to have him on board and be the awesome spokesperson for our brand.
Yeah, we made a short documentary on him. You should check it out. That's pretty cool. It's AyurPrana Plus is our media platform.
Yeah.
And you just check it. It's like a 7-day free trial, and you can just watch as much stuff as you can if you want for those 7 days. But
We'll give you a
towards the end-
subscription.
Yeah,
I
we'll get you
appreciate
one.
it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to watch it. I saw like a trailer for it that my friend sent me, and I was like, no way. That's
Yeah, that trailer's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
My son is friends with, Ika.
Yeah.
Ashton starts the same age. So he's a 6-year-old boy. He saw the trailer for the Troy Casey doc. And he was curious. I was showing his mom, my wife, and he came over. Whatever the hell was we were watching, he wanted to be a part of it and see it. So he saw this thing where Troy's slapping his nuts and drinking his pee.
Have you seen that? You seen Troy slapping his balls?
Yeah. The next day, he had a play date with his buddy, and my wife comes home. She said, "I'm gonna fucking kill you."
Oh no! I know where this is going.
He gets in front of me. He's like slapping his nuts. He's like, "I got my pee," drinking his pee.
Oh my gosh!
The other mother's like, "Dylan, what are you doing?"
You should send it to Troy. You just
I have videos of my
So
son sitting there
fun.
slapping his balls now.
Oh my gosh!
So Shilajit and ball slapping can be like a stack,
Yeah,
to get your testosterone rolling.
testosterone stack.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you just wash it in your own pee instead of a cow's pee. There's probably something
Gotta
there.
be something to that.
We'll let you know when we'll send you a little bit if we refine the Shilajit with cow's urine. We'll ship it
Have
to
you ever
Florida.
explored that?
Not more than just from the traditional.
Just reading about it. Yeah.
Just reading about it. I think, not that. Yeah, there's definitely something to it. Like something in, I think it's like maybe the uric acid or
Yeah.
certain things, the acids in the cow urine help to cleanse it and break it down, and that makes sense because the villagers would like bathe themselves because it's very antibacterial and like super healthy for your skin, like the cow urine. So I think they just found that would be a good way to make sure the Shilajit was clean and not tainted or with bacteria and stuff like that.
So you just moved to Florida. So is it your headquarters going to be in Florida, or?
Yeah,
Yeah.
our headquarters are in Port St. Lucie.
Okay.
I grew up in Spain, but I moved to Florida when I was 8 years old, and
Uh-huh.
I've been there ever since, except for when I was here for a couple of years. And yeah, I love it there. Port St. Lucie's, it's nice, and we have a good team there, and yeah, that's where we want to, keep
grow.
keep growing. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a facility that's a decent size, but we want to grow into something bigger to make more products and not it be so cramped with all of our jars and everything.
Port St. Lucie is is it a very old city? Is that, or am I thinking of a different city in Florida? I had some friends that just went.
St. Augustine is the oldest city.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Port St. Lucie is expanding a lot. It's definitely like an older area, like the downtown, but recently, in the last like 50 years, it's gotten way bigger. Yeah, a lot of people retire there from up north.
One thing that's kind of fascinating is you have the tradition of something like Shilajit, where it's like the way that it's been ingested and taken. And then when it moves into culture, the modernizing of it by combining it with, like you're talking about, people making gummies and whatnot. I'm curious your dance between like the traditional methodologies with it and then experimenting and exploring other newer ways of working with it.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a right way to do it. I think, all of our products are made with the raw resin instead of like, some super processed and like fractionated powder. Like for the gummies, like I know they're probably not using resin, they're probably using that powder. So we've explored, everything we can make essentially with the raw resin, and trying to keep it as pure as possible, but also giving people what they want, because a lot of people, they can't stand the smell or the taste of the shilajit. They're just utterly repulsed, and then some people eat it like Tic Tacs, and even some children, like my friend sent me a video of his like 4-year-old kid like crying, and then he just gives him a little tablet of shilajit, and he just stops crying, and he's stoked. He loves the taste. And yeah, our manager and our wholesale manager for Black Lotus, he has some nephews that do some rock climbing and stuff, and they love to take it and rock climb. But yeah, I think for us, we just want to keep the integrity of that raw resin and try to keep it as pure as possible without breaking down the molecular structure. And the I think that's where the real benefits come from, is that electrifying force that is like endowed with that grounding and powerful energy of the earth.
That'd be a good commercial. If you get on a flight and there's a baby crying, you just slip it some shilajit and it stops crying. So if you use that idea, just make sure you give me some credit.
Yeah, it will.
Yeah. So what else do you have going that's exciting? I know you guys moved to Florida, but anything else that you like seeing in the world or that you're exploring that's exciting or interesting for you?
Well, something I was talking to Troy about recently is he was very into the indigenous cultures, and he's big in like Sedona and like the tribes, and ayahuasca as well. And kind of a cool story that I relates to the shilajit for me. It was kind of like a destiny type of situation, where the first crystal I ever got was an ammonite that this guy was selling near my aunt's house in Chattanooga, and he had been diving in Madagascar, and it was like a 600-year-old fossil, or 600 million-year-old fossil. And I carried that with me for 5 or 6 years in my pocket. Like, it was my favorite thing. I loved to touch it. Just
Wow.
had the spiral, and each little chamber felt like a different like chapter of my life, and I had different crystals and inside of each chamber. And I got invited to stay with some indigenous tribes in Colombia, where the elder shamans are called mamos. And Troy had met some of the Kogi mamos. There's 4 tribes.
They stay in the dark most of the time, right?
Yeah, so they know when they're gonna be born, essentially, the elders, and they're raised in caves until 9, and they don't really see much light, and they don't see the outside world, so they live in the spirit world up until they're 9, and then they come out into the real world. And so they're super psychic, and they can coordinate meetings with other tribes and then just like show up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they're all there. And so that, I brought that with me on that trip, and I kind of got into, spirituality and like permaculture and herbalism after I did ayahuasca, and I was very into indigenous cultures and kind of connecting to my ancestors, because I'm Basque, and so that's like the indigenous people of Spain, essentially. And I felt very connected to all the cultures that are one with the earth, and that can have this connection with the plants and the animals and the life, and just like very fulfilled and happy. And that kind of led me on this journey of spirituality, and that's how I ended up getting invited to go to their village. And it was amazing. We got to stay in their huts with the straw roofs, and we stayed in a hammock, and we did ceremony with them for a couple of weeks. And we were asked to give something for them to give to Mother Earth, and I gave up that ammonite fossil. And then years later, I started the shilajit, and then about a year into it is when I found that researcher, and I got his book, and on the front of the book is an ammonite fossil. And that's, because that's what the Shilajit is mainly composed of, the minerals from it. So it's kind of this full circle moment, or like full spiral moment. And yeah, so and we pretty much had to sign a contract that we would help them. Like, we got invited because they needed help. So yeah, one of my missions is to help them, get some land back, because it's being taken by the government and they're like kind of oppressed, and there's a lot of illicit activities that they do in the mountains that impedes on their way of life, and certain sacred places for them that get turned into factories, or sacred lakes that get drained or dammed. And yeah, so a cool thing is that I'm hoping to go back there and bring them some Shilajit and kind of like, have that be part of my mission, and like donate to help their, preserve their way of life, because they really taught me so much, about my ancestry and about theirs, and it's very, really interesting.
I mean, that's such a beautiful and profound that you gave up this thing, made it an offering, and it came back to you.
Right.
Like, in so much bigger and incredible of a way.
Yeah, it was like a seed that they planted for me, and it grew into something amazing.
Yeah, I think humanity's at this point now where it doesn't reconnect with its like ancient traditions and the shamanic living or Vedic living or whatever. It's like we're in a whole heap of trouble. But I see a lot of people. I think it's so beautiful that you're honoring that part of existence, because whether you're from South America or India or the Baltics, wherever you're from, they talk about the same things like ether, air, fire, water, earth, the streams being the arteries of the mother. Like, it's so simple, worshiping the sun. And so, I think the more that we reconnect back to that, the better. And even, I love the idea of, so they're connected to the spirit world. You were talking about that until like age 9. So they're like in like caves and stuff like that. That's incredible. That sounds like you can put Dylan in a cave for a few weeks.
I've been right by there, where the Kogi are, doing ceremony outside of Santa Marta. And that land it's a fascinating place, Colombia, because it kind of stopped developing in many ways and now is resumed. But there's a lot of ancientness that kind of, the cocaine, like the drug lords, that you basically didn't go in areas for a long period of time. You didn't enter these areas. So they kind of were undisturbed in a way. And then when they were able to go through and clean out some of the mines or whatever was going on in there.
Unfortunately, yeah. But yeah, it's there, when the Spanish went there, they were the only people that kind of didn't lose their way of life at all, because they went up the mountains, and the Spanish didn't want to climb, because the Sierra Nevada mountains in Colombia, where they live, are the tallest coastal mountains in the world. And so you can be like in the snow at the top of the mountain and see the beach or the ocean, which is super cool. So their way of life has been, undisturbed and, just like connected to all. They say they remember all the way back to their first ancestors, like millions of years ago, and it's like this unbroken chain of shamans that remember through these practices of meditation, connecting to the earth, and like being super in tune. And it was fascinating to be around them. They're mountains themselves. I felt like they would look through your soul, and they're just like still beyond words. Like, they're, even the children that were there, like we were sitting on boulders for like 12 hours and the children would not move. Not even, I would have this huge bruise on my butt because like it was all day on a rock, and they would just sit there and not talk, and they would just super still. Just like their presence is amazing.
One thing that I've felt, there's all of this movement towards these like health hacking and superfoods, and for a lot of the younger generation, I feel like there's some people that are connecting into it from a sense of spirit and connection to a bigger vision of life. Then there's this whole nother section that seems to be missing that connection, where it's just about feeling good, but that there's not that bigger container. How do you think we bring those? Do you have any thoughts of how bringing that bigger sense of spirit and connection to?
Yeah, it's difficult because they're very like technology forward, where instead of just sitting on the beach in the sand, they'll buy this $100,000 machine to ground them and give them red light and oxygen and ions and stuff, when that's all what
God's gift.
Yeah, that's already here, and you don't need that in your high-rise apartment. But because it's like going towards the direction of health, but not really in the direction of wholeness. And for me, it's like I've been thinking about it, and for me, it's like herbalism is a good way to bridge the gap, because people understand herbs in the physical, but once you kind of get into it, then you understand more of energetics, and then more of the cycle of the earth, and when to harvest and how to harvest and what plants grow where and why, and so that's an interesting aspect for me, and that's kind of the direction that I want to go in. And right now I have 2 more classes left in this like advanced herbal certification that I'm doing with my herbalist, who I've been going to for 10 years. Her name's Joanna Helms, and she's been practicing for 30 years, like clinical herbalism, seeing patients, and her stories are just incredible of the power of plants, and how people like knock on her door at 2 a.m. like coughing out blood and all sorts of stuff, and people trust her with their life, and because they see the her integrity. And so for me, it's kind of bridging the gap between like all this technology and extracts and concentrates and it's like chemical substances to back to take a step back to where they come from, and kind of biohacking through herbs, which is just bio, I guess.
Life.
Yeah, bio life.
I feel like I love that answer, because I feel like if your connection to life is through plants, you're seeing the force of life in the way that rain or drought or cold, like just the forces of life affect something, and how do you care for that fragility and the beauty of life, and how other plants come around them, and there's interact. I feel like the whole of life can be understood better and experienced by just working with plants. Like you understand yourself more, you understand the miracle and majesty of this planet. It's such a beautiful way into a deeper connection with everything.
Definitely. Yeah, and like at the health food store I worked at, people would come in for all of these like 20 different random tablets and extracts, and I'd be like, just try this tincture. I'd get them to try like Gaia herb stuff or herb farm tinctures, or like more whole food type things. But yeah, people, my herbalist calls it like green drugs, essentially, because they're better than pharmaceuticals, but you're treating them like a drug instead of like this whole thing. And yeah, she's really big into organoleptics, which is like tasting and smelling the herbs, and she can tell when something's not from the right region where it's traditionally from. Like she knows when sandalwood isn't from India, or when roses aren't from Turkey, or things like that. And it's fascinating to me. She's like, yeah, this was a wet year wherever this was, because or like it's the season has changed, or you harvested this at the wrong time and now it tastes weird, or it tastes different than it's supposed to, because so like different medicines or different herbs you want to harvest at different seasons, when the energy is in the roots, or when the energy is in the flowers or in the leaves. So it puts you in a much more connected state to the earth, and how our bodies are just made wonderfully to accept these things. And yeah, like it's a gift from God to, you know, be able to have all these things that just work with the body without, you know, all these forceful things that they do nowadays. And it's just kind of like a gentle way to let your body take what it needs from the herbs and use its own intelligence and, yeah, like with the plant allies, essentially.
Dr. Laud talks about how it's either the second or the third chakra when you kundalini, when the energy rises into either the second or the third chakra. One of the siddhis that you get, like powers that emerge, is the ability to know where any plant or food, like what village it came from, that there's this insight that comes where what you're talking about, that you can you'll know exactly where, the season, the climate, if something was off. You just, these abilities that are inherent and intrinsic in us just kind of emerge. And that's one of the kind of inherent gifts that we have that has been lost, is that ability to be so in tune with the natural world in a way where we're just, everything for most people just comes in boxes these days.
Yeah, and it's just fascinating to me how, you know, the original people that did Ayurveda or traditional herbalism all over the world, they would just, you know, sit there and they would try it, they would make the tea, and then they would feel where it was going in their body energetically, if it was a downward mover or an upward mover, if it was cold or hot or, you know, bitter or drying or moistening. So it's just fascinating how that art is, you know, almost extinct in our Western world, but yeah, that's why I love her, and I want to stay close to her because I want to be able to experience that art of knowing what these amazing plants do. And I got big into permaculture years ago, and I got to grow like 50 different herbs and 100 different types of fruit trees, and I had a little forest in my yard. So it was, it's so rewarding to like, start something from seed and then make a tincture out of it and help someone, or make a tea, or, you know, you get that first fruit from a tree, and it's just like this magical experience and relationship that, like people don't have and are so disconnected from the reality that we live in, or, you know, the real reality underneath the reality that they've created above it. And that's kind of my goal, is to really hone in on that and get all the knowledge I can.
That's our quest and mission as well, especially with our streaming platform, is capturing stories and wisdom and practices from that deeper world, and preserving and sharing and trying to plant seeds in people to keep it alive. So that's kind of what we've decided is the best thing we can do with our lives.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But it kind of permeates through like so many things that we do. So we have, like, you know, in our media company, also like at Soham, our healing center, you know, we just brought this lady on team. She's like a farmer. So we started growing our own food there. Well, Helene came through and knocked down all of our, we had like 200 acres and knocked down like
Crazy.
1 in every 2 trees, if not more, got knocked down. And so that opened up an opportunity for us, because it's in the mountains, for us to just start creating these little patches of farms. And so, you know, one of our missions is to let people know that they can source their own medicine, you know, from nature, and they can source their own food, and they can just, you know, really balance themselves out. So I think that it's pretty much if you feel comfortable that you can heal yourself and you can grow your own medicine and you can grow your own food, then that just puts humanity at a different level. We lean on the wrong things to heal us, you know? So it's like, the direction we're going in.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Sure. Well, thanks so much, man. This has been really fun to chat and get to know you a little bit and hear your story and the beautiful work that you're doing.
Yeah,
Appreciate
I love all
you.
the esoteric stuff too. So I'm excited to see, you know, how everything's going to unfold for you. And we always tell this to, you know, you're doing great work in the world, and we pray for you to be successful and to continue doing good things.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's really an honor to be on here. I appreciate you guys having me.
And we'll have a little link if you want to check out some of Black Lotus Shilajit to order some of their products. It's high quality. Awesome. Thanks,
All right,
man.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
All right.